Schweitzer, and I'm here today on behalf of beautiful Brea Old and New and the Brea Historical Society to interview an old Brean who lived his dream and made it to the big leagues, Randy Jones. Randy?
Don, how are you?
Good. Thank you for coming today.
My pleasure.
Before we get into your baseball career, I'd like to talk to you about growing up in Brea. I know your parents moved out here in 1950, I believe.
Yeah, actually a few years prior to that, they moved the Jones and Parker families who lived here in Brea. Actually, by way of Odessa, Texas, by way of Lincoln, Arkansas, they all made it out here to Brea, this area. My dad had a job at Leffingwell Chemical in Whittier at the time. And so they were looking for a place to settle down, and Mom and Dad just decided that Brea was that little town that they wanted to raise their kids.
How did they find Brea? Back then it was about 4,000 people and a bunch of orange groves and oil wells.
Yeah, exactly, and then you're just talking to local folks and that local knowledge that you get, and that's kind of how you find the little gems in a certain area or a county. Just like probably I did when I moved to Poway in the 70s in San Diego when I was playing for the Padres. Just word of mouth, and I'm sure that's probably how we ended up here in Brea.
And you were born in Brea, well, Fullerton, actually.
Yeah, little cottage hospital. That's right.
Right.
Yeah, but the little cottage hospital in Fullerton, and I lived all my young life right here in Brea. Absolutely loved it.
So let's talk about that young life. Baseball, obviously. You started young.
Sure.
Probably throwing the ball back and forth with your father. When did you start getting into baseball?
Well, I played. I always loved baseball. I was 7 years old at that time, and ours 1957. I'll fess up, what year it was. As the first year of organized baseball was Pee Wee League here in Brea, and I remember John Matlock was my coach. And John Matlock at the time, I was 7 years old. He was in high school, and he was our coach in Pee Wee League. And we played a lot of our games at Laurel School, there in the little corner field. Again, you remember 7 years old, little guys running around.
Well, we didn't have any other elementary school.
Well, that's true. Not too many fields around here either, to be honest. But I think that, John, he was our coach, and I think we had 9 games that year. And I pitched 7 of them, the whole summer. It was a 9-game season when you're 7.
Did you start off as a pitcher? I mean,
yes.
Did you always wanted to be a pitcher?
I always wanted to be a pitcher. For some reason, I just loved the mound. I loved, throwing the baseball. And I remember that was so long ago, and our catchers were so bad, the umpire actually stood behind me. He stood behind the mound and called balls and strikes. And I'll never forget that as a little kid, because number one, the catcher didn't catch the ball that often. He didn't want to stand back there. And I understand that now.
Yeah, exactly. Now, after growing up and going through elementary school, obviously you went to high school here.
Right.
And you started baseball, varsity baseball, your freshman year. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. Just 7th, 8th grade, we played a lot of baseball, at Brea Junior High. And finally got to high school, and I had some talent. So my freshman year, I was on the varsity team. Got to pitch up like a typical freshman. I didn't get really a lot of, I wasn't the ace pitcher, but I was on the staff. We had some older guys that were throwing the baseball pretty good. Byron Shanks and some of the other guys that were older than me, but overall, my sophomore years really kind of came into, being every day, playing the outfield when I wasn't pitching and everything else.
Who were your coaches back then?
Wow, Pat Putnam
right.
was our coach for many years, and it was great. Pat was always a lot of fun, and then probably the biggest impact was my senior year in high school. The new baseball coach was Don Terranova. And it was his first year. And I decided in my senior year that if I was going to get a scholarship, it's what I was kind of looking for, is wanted to go to college. I knew I wasn't going to get a football scholarship. And I was too short to get a basketball scholarship.
If I recall, you were kind of a skinny guy.
Yeah.
With a big head of hair.
Yeah, the old days, that's right, yeah. And you're exactly right. But I think overall, I wanted to play baseball all my senior year. So, I started out, and Don Terranova wanted to make some changes in my mechanics and how I pitched. And I bought into his philosophy, and I worked really hard with Don Terranova all winter while football was going on, while basketball was going on. I was out on the baseball field getting ready for the season. And it really paid a lot of dividends. I got to credit Don Terranova in playing high school baseball for, a lot of, I improved so much with the changes that he made in me. Yeah, mentally, I was still the same, but my mechanics got better. And I think that really made a difference. And finally, I got a scholarship to go to Chapman College over in Orange to play baseball, and I was really satisfied. I didn't get drafted out of high school because pretty much the scouts knew that I was going to go to college. I was going to get my degree, and at that point in time, you always have the dream of playing Major League Baseball. There's no doubt about that. But I think what I really wanted baseball to do at that point in time is pay for my college education.
Before we get into college, let's back up just a little bit.
Sure.
Back into the Brea days.
Yeah.
Because right after high school, you left and you go to college, and then you go on. But let's talk a little bit about growing up in Brea back then, because it was a small town. And,
Sure.
About that time, it was about 8,000 maybe.
Well,
And,
it was
remember
classic.
the Tasty Freeze?
Oh, sure.
And
I remember all that, and especially after every Little League game, we would always jump in the station wagon. My dad was the coach, and we'd all hit the Tasty Freeze for an ice cream.
all right, we'd have to cruise downtown.
Yeah, of course, make a little noise when you win and be a little quiet when you don't. But no, it was just great growing up here. And like you say, it was a small town, a lot of open space, and we'd find more things to do here in Brea. It was just a great environment. We'd play baseball out in the street or football, whatever it might be, or in the backyard. And it is all summer long, nonstop.
And you grew up actually right across the street, or right down the street here.
Well, right, yeah. Actually, my first house was on Locust,
Right.
Right over here. And then, actually, when I was 15, I think we moved to Elm Street, from Locust. But that was just our little local neighborhood. And
Right.
you knew every nook and cranny, and we got bored. I remember we used to just walk the fences down along through the houses, and we always finding something to do. But it always seemed like there was a game somewhere. We'd find just a dirt lot and 4 pieces of a newspaper for bases. Then game on, we'd start playing baseball.
Now, see, I did the same thing, but with football. I never played baseball.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I can remember many a time in the streets. The streets are laid out here in Brea, the old
Right.
days, plenty of room, not high traffic area, I might say, like Locust, and we were always out there. We had some kind of game going on, all the kids in the neighborhood.
And we couldn't do anything wrong, because if we did, the whole town knows about it.
That is
Especially
absolutely
you got a
correct.
pretty large family here.
Yes, and yeah, everybody'd know about it if you made a few
Exactly,
mistakes.
exactly.
And,